Today is Friday, February 12th, 2016. The time is 1:09, and we'll begin with roll call, beginning with Mrs. Hartman.
Kim Hartman.
Pam Hartman.
George Jackson.
Barbara Philibert.
And Bonnie Sneed. All members are present, and we have a quorum. The first item on our agenda is discussion and possible vote to approve the recommendation for award of the request for proposal for Superintendent Search Consultant. The purpose of the RFP was to secure a company or individual capable of providing consulting services to assist the governing board in the search for a new Scottsdale Unified School District superintendent. Danny?
Okay, sure. Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Birdwell. As you know, we had a solicitation put out for to find a company to do the superintendent search for Scottsdale Unified School District. I'll just give you a little bit of brief information here. We did open the bid on Wednesday. We sent it or was emailed or contacted by 62 potential vendors. We had 3 that responded. The 3 proposals were received by McPherson Jacobs LLC, Atlantic Research Partners, and Arizona School Boards Association. We had five members on the evaluation committee that met yesterday, read through the 3 proposals, gave them a point rankings, and through that point rankings, Arizona School Boards Association was determined to be the best respondent, and the recommendation of the committee to the board to hire to complete the permanent superintendent search for Scottsdale Unified School District.
Board members have any questions, comments? Ms. Hartman?
Dan, can you just walk us through what the criteria is based on, and then just high level, and then who actually was on the committee?
Sure. Board Member Hartman, Madam President, the evaluation criteria looked at several different items. So first it looked at capacity. So does the firm have the qualifications? Have they done it before? What's their history? Do they have the adequate staffing to do what Scottsdale needs for the search? And then we looked at the true experience, so the qualifications, anything that goes along with that. How long they've been in business, what were those things. We then looked at cost structure. So it was a request for proposal. So cost is not the determining factor, as it would be if we did an invitation for bid, but it is a factor. And then we looked at compliance to the proposal. So did they do what we asked them to do? Did they send all the information and send all that information? So that was done. That was 1,000 points. Each category had a different point value to it. And so I'm just going to let you know the total points. I won't let you know each individual, although we can send it to the board if they wanted to. So McPherson Jacobson had 3,905 votes. Atlantic Research had 3,790. And Arizona School Boards Association had 4,675. The members of the committee were myself, Daniel O'Brien, Dr. Karen Benson, Mr. Tom Clark, Dr. Pam Sitton, and Mrs. Cindy Bitcon, which is the president of Scottsdale Parent Council.
Thank you. Can I have a quick follow-up question?
Sure.
So on the as the bid, was this actually a contingency or retention? The fee arrangement. Is it retained fee or contingency? Just wondering.
I'm trying to think of how all of them were proposed. So it was.
I don't know if we asked for it a certain way.
I don't think we did. It was an all-inclusive pricing structure with a daily or hourly fee for extra time that the board might ask for. I don't believe we asked for it to be a retainer or a conclusion-based fee. I can't remember. I have to look it up.
Okay.
But it was an all-inclusive fee. So.
Thank you.
did you have, Mr. Jackson?
I think the Arizona School Board Association, they talked about wrapping in the interim search into this. Is that still the case?
Board Member Jackson, Madam President, I do not believe that is the case since we did separate the two. That was talked about, it was just all together in one large proposal. So those will be broken out into two different fees.
Okay, so I'm not trying to beat this to death, but they gave us a proposal at one point that I think, or prior to us going out for the
Right,
search.
so if you did this, this gets wrapped into it. That is no longer the agreement because we didn't take that proposal at that time.
Okay.
So I will double check with that, but I do not believe that's.
Can we talk numbers? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, I don't have the cost in front of me. I can try to remember off the top of my head, but I know that cost-wise, ASBA was very similar to the proposal that they gave the board. I don't know, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and that even though cost wasn't the deciding factor, they were less than the other two companies. They were also the only local company.
Right, but I can ask you this, was the fee that they proposed in this you said it's pretty close to what they,
It's pretty close. Mm-hmm.
but in addition to that,
We'll have the small fee for the interim search.
okay.
I believe that was, do you remember how much that was? They quoted, not Jewish fees,
Yeah,
25.
I don't think we've seen a final bill yet, so
Okay.
I don't think it'll be that much.
Ms. Kirby?
I think I know what she meant by contingency, what was the other one? Retainer, but if you could just explain those two differences so that I make them clear that I know, and then.
I'll have Member Hartman explain, because I don't want to explain the wrong thing. They might mean differently to me,
What
so.
it means to me and the two scenarios, retained is a fixed fee that you say, I'm going to pay you whatever, 10 grand, 20 grand, regardless of outcome. Contingency is the percentage of the person's salary that you hired. Okay.
So it's a fixed fee. It's an all-inclusive fixed fee. Yeah.
And the difference being, where it really becomes important is if it's an existing candidate, a contingency you wouldn't pay, a fixed you would.
Right.
And what is this one? Probably.
It's fixed, yes.
Okay, and as I remember, and I'm going from memory, I should have brought it with me, I apologize, maybe someone can grab it, but they have it on the computer, so. As I remember the proposal as they gave it, it was $25,000, but then it had an hourly rate for every hour that exceeded that plan that they gave us as part of the proposal. So 25 was the floor. Yeah. And I'm surprised you were on the committee, but you don't really remember what it actually was.
Board Member Kirby, Madam President.
This is the old one, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's the same as the new one.
The pricing structure for all three companies, ASBA's, yeah, I don't have the exact numbers. ASBA's cost was pretty much almost in line with exactly what you just explained. It was a flat fee, which was very close to what they proposed in here, and then it had a hourly rate or a daily rate for if you come back for more meetings, if you have another day, if you do that. All three companies had that similar fee structure. So they all had an all-inclusive, and then they had a fee. The other two companies had not only an hourly or a daily fee for quote-unquote extra time, but because they were out of state, they also had travel cost built into that fee too. Because the other two companies are from out of state, so they have to fly people in when they do things and stuff like that. And then, so ASBA was right around that $25,000. I think it was $25,400, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then the other two companies were in the 30s.
But it all depends on, there's a fixed cost that's $25,400, and it's $30,000 to the other companies, but then it all depends on the individual anticipated hours that they laid out as part of that. That's the variable cost, right? Well, how I remember it, how I got comfortable with that, the children who read through it the first time, it's really simple. We agreed with the steps. Whatever it takes to get to those steps, they're responsible for it. And because we looked at the steps and we talked about, community engagement and all those kinds of things, if you get comfortable with the steps, then you're going to get comfortable with the cost.
If I might add, being somebody who's been through lots of those interviews, what happens is sometimes it goes beyond that basic scope, and even a team might want to fly to another state to see a candidate and interview people there that have worked with that individual. So what happens is if you get past this basics, the hourly then kicks in, and it creates that's where you get the escalated cost at. So all of a sudden, we've had one community forum, didn't have the turnout that you really wanted, but you want to have a second forum now because you felt like you needed more feedback. Then the hourly kicks in. So there is very much a set standard. If you're only going to go through 3 interviews, great. But if we're now going to add a 4th or a 5th, now you're going to get into your cost.
And thank you, Dr. Bluewell. And to add to that, ASBA had the most meetings under their fee versus the other 2 companies. So ASBA had more meetings under that flat base fee versus the other companies that didn't have as many meetings in there.
Ms. Kroger?
Sure, I'll ask for clarification of further action today. Accepting this RFP is not maybe necessarily the same decision as to, okay, we're going to start this process, we're going to begin this contract now, or am I misunderstanding?
Board Member Perleberg, Madam President, if you vote to accept the recommendation of hiring ASBA to do the search, then this afternoon or Tuesday morning, I will contact ASBA, hand them a purchase order, and then they will probably work with the superintendent's office and the governing board to start setting the meeting dates.
As I recall, ASBA proposed a contract previously, so we would, I'd review that, make sure that it's acceptable, and put that probably on I could put it on consent or information, whatever you guys would like to do, so that you're approving the actual contract.
But the work would, I'm sorry,
Ms. Kirby?
but they would go ahead and start before the approval of that contract?
Technically, they could.
Sorry?
Technically, they could off of an RFP.
Yeah.
The purchase order becomes the primary contract with the district and the vendor. So if ASBA requests a contract, it's a secondary contract, so they could start work based off of the PO being the primary contract.
Yes,
I don't know, I mean, that's how.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. President?
It probably goes without saying, but that's kind of, I think where we would like to go with this, Danny, is we want to get started. I don't need to speak for everybody, but I think that's the consensus. So I mean, if they need that other contract, maybe the conversation would be, the board's ready for you to start. So the contract, I guess it's not necessarily a formality, but it kind of is. And,
yeah,
okay.
Board Member Jackson, Madam President, a lot of companies ask for a secondary contract, and usually Michelle and I just work through that with the language and everything, and I end up signing it. The PO and the scope of work inside the RFP is the actual primary contract.
I understand. I guess the one reason I brought it up is if it required coming back to the board to be put on a consent agenda, that could be several weeks down the road before. Am I making any?
That's absolutely right. The
Okay.
PO and the RFP are the offer and acceptance that form the contract. But he's also right that a lot of companies will ask us to do more detail based on whatever work they're doing. So, yeah, they can totally start off with that, and we can put the actual agreement as approved between Danny and I on your consent agenda.
Terrific. Thank you.
Ms. Hartman?
Well, and just to piggyback a little bit on Board Member Jackson, where we left off is we actually expedited this process so that we can move forward as quickly as possible, so that we could get the most candidates in the process. So there's no reason why we would want to go back with this. We were all in agreement that this is what was in the best interest of the district. Now, we happen to have a great interim superintendent, you know, in the mix, but it's still a process. It's the process. So I'm assuming we want to go as quickly as possible.
Ms. Kroger?
If I may then, because I guess where I was leading it with the idea, and I know this came up even before we hired our interim, and like you said, it was great. We're very happy to have her here. So the question, though, in my mind, still the concern of our time frame and how, you know, are we really in that ideal window of for shopping for a permanent superintendent, you know, considering there's kind of a season for that. And I know at the time, we talked about that if it became possible that we go through this little window of time for interim, and maybe we're not successful, or maybe, like I said, whatever considerations for interim, that permanent search maybe then extends into possibly following early spring, late winter time frame. Will that be in this contract as well? Is it flexible in that stretch of time? If whatever happens in the next few months, if we decide somehow to say, okay, we may want to not put this permanent position in place until the year 2018, is that possibility, and still start this contracting process right now?
Member Pilberg, Madam President, all three companies proposed a timeline of having a permanent superintendent in place by January 1st of 2016. The very first meeting that you'll have with the vendor that you select will be the planning process meeting, which means you guys will meet, I believe, in all three proposals, it was like a 4 to 8 hour meeting time frame that they put on it. And that's when you will build kind of...
You said 4 to 8, not 48.
Yeah, 4 to 8, yes, 4 to 8.
Feels that.
To build the criteria, to build the time frame, to build that. And then at that meeting, if the board has a discussion to extend that timeline or move that timeline, then that's up to the board and the vendor that you select. But all three of them had timelines of having a permanent superintendent in place by January 1st, 2016. Because that's what I believe the board requested, and that's what we talked about and put in the RFP.
Danny, did you mean July 1st?
Thank you, because I was thinking that, and I'm like, was I the only one who didn't know? I was
Look on
thinking
January,
July
that is
1st.
a very odd time.
Yeah, this is why we don't have board meetings on Friday. July 1st, 2016, yes, July 1st, 2016.
Thank you. And that was,
In there.
all of them said that.
Don't have fires. It is, it's ringing in my ears. July 1st, 2016.
Okay.
So they all have the time frame of getting started in February, working through March, working through April, getting final, stakeholder meetings done in that March, early April time frame, and contract in that May time frame. All three companies had that.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Thanks for, I probably said January 10 times. July 1st.
Just twice, that was...
You said 18, so I was just making sure I got the year right.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I turn back time.
Okay.
My kids are growing up too fast. So.
Discussion, questions, anybody ready to make a motion? Okay, Ms. Hartman.
So let's see, I will make a motion to approve the recommendation to award the request of proposal for superintendent search firm being added. Start according to what contract?
We'll get it done.
I'll second it.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Okay. Do we have 5-0? I can see everybody. Okay.
Is it past time for discussion, more discussion?
I know, I guess, can I just ask a big question? I guess in my mind, I came here wondering if there was a way to avoid this cost at this moment, before we knew more as the board, in our direction we wanted to go, but if that's a minority belief, then I guess we'll do this.
I'm not following.
I'm sorry, to me, there were options besides locking us into this price at this current. But I don't know how much to say about that, honestly,
Actually, with Board Member Hartman in our last meeting that we had, forget when that was. You made a comment about, I know when it was. It was when we were approving Dr. Bergman's contract, because you made a comment about putting language in the contract to give us the option to extend, I think. And my response to you at that time was, we can always amend the contract. We wanted to get it approved that day. But I think one option could be, instead of moving forward with this RFP process for a new superintendent search, is to explore just extending the contract right now as an alternative,
Dr. Birdwell's contract.
Yeah.
unless you're volunteering.
Yeah, you want me to.
Yeah.
That's all right. No, I just want to make sure I understand what we're talking about.
And I did, like I said, even before hiring Dr. Birdwell, or on that finalist, process, I did feel there was discussion that left that door open of, okay, we got a 6-month contract for an interim, but again, especially even looking at the concerns of our timing right now being prime, we're a little behind in that prime search window for permanent superintendent. If we're not, great, but I know it was a consideration at the time, and the question was asked, are we going to have that possibility of discussing extending the interim position from 6 months to 18 months? I know that was a question I'd asked, and I guess I still saw that as a possibility, and probably should have said it earlier, but
Probably before the vote.
I apologize. I apologize. It was just out there. Know what everyone's ready to go. So,
Mrs. Kirby.
So from my perspective, as I've said before to the board members, and I will say it publicly today, that I see great value in having the person who's building our budget, building our bond proposal, building our capital override proposal, be the same person who has to deliver those three. And I said that before you even started, Dr. Birdwell, because regardless of who was in the seat, that's what I believe. And couple that belief with the momentum, I don't know if you've read your emails today, but with the momentum that we seem to be having politically, I want to capture and harness that momentum as opposed to doing this RFP search and putting a big question in the community's mind, and there's some, who's it going to be in the seat July 1st? That's a softer side to all of this, I guess, a little more esoterical, less, it's not as easy to manage, or to measure. And I'm not sure that I'm not sure what could happen if we start to put questions in people's minds. I think it would slow that momentum down and carry into November. That's just my own personal opinion.
Ms. Carter?
Which is weird having this conversation with you here. But
Yeah.
we don't even know
saying it is what it
It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
That's
Hartman.
And so where I'm at on this is that I agree, having the person, whoever designs it, delivers it, is always the better case scenario, and that requires a permanent person in the role to do that. I guess from a governance perspective, what I think is in the best interest of the district is continuity and long-term, which ultimately is what we're trying to pursue, which is a 3-year contract. So I see anything less than a 3-year contract is not in the best interest of the district. So I would like to see whether Dr. Birdwell or whomever the candidate is, can't imagine, well, there's, whoever those candidates might be, whoever those candidates are, to get them in the role by June 30th, July 1st, as soon as possible. And I think we're right on schedule. We've got good counsel that we're right on schedule to go through this bid process or this candidate process. Now isn't the time. Every day does count, which was always our sense of urgency. So I feel as though it is our responsibility to get to the best long-term answer as soon as possible. And anything less than that is kind of kicking the can for for another long-term answer. So if we can get to there by June 30th, I think we're acting in the best interest of our district to do that. If we can't, then we have something else we need to address at June 30th, but let's do everything we can in our power to get the best answer as quickly and as appropriately as possible. So that's kind of, I guess, how I had thought it through.
Ms. Hartman, I agree with you because I'm more of a process person. I like to take the person out of it and say, does it matter who is there? No offense, Dr. Birdwell. Does it matter, do we change our objective because of a person, or do we set the vision? Do we, start working on things and if the board has approved a direction, it doesn't matter who the superintendent is. Again, I apologize. They have to act on it. And I would hope that after Dr. Birdwell, to put a personal slant on it, I would hope that after working with us for 6 months, she would want to put her name in that. But that is one of the things that we also don't know for sure. So.
Fair enough.
I don't remember if we have a second. Did anybody second?
We all voted yes.
I didn't hear you. I did not hear you. Okay. Well, then we have a 5-0 vote, and thank you very much. Thanks, Danny, and thank you. Can you please convey our thanks to the whole committee?
Thank you
for their work. So then I will make a motion to convene an executive session for item 3A, discussion or consultation for legal advice with the attorney or attorneys of the public body regarding an investigation of an employee's complaint pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3. Can I have a second?
A second.
Okay.
A second, a third.
5 seconds. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Okay. So at this time, we're going to reconvene the special meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board. Today is Friday, February 12th. The time is 3:48 p.m., and we will have a roll call again.
Pam Kirby.
George Jackson.
Barbara Perlebert, and Bonnie Sneed. The item on the agenda is item 5, discussion and possible board action regarding investigation of employee complaint. Dr. Birdwell.
Yeah, and after receiving legal advice, there is no action to be taken.
Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, it was Hartman and Perlebert. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.